Welcome to the Kingdom Culture Podcast that was created on purpose with a purpose to empower, uplift, and guide others to the center of God's perfect will. Kingdom Culture family, welcome back to the Kingdom Culture Podcast. I hope everybody's been having a great week. This week I want to talk to you about something that many of us probably don't think about. And it's unlearning what no longer serves us. Because, we always talk about growth, healing, and becoming our best selves, but no one tells us that sometimes before we grow, we need to unlearn, old beliefs, habits, stories that once protected us, but are no longer aligning with who we're trying to become or who we are now, right? And I had a season where I realized that things I used to believe about myself just weren't true anymore. I used to believe that being strong meant that I was, independent, never asking for help, figuring it out on my own, making sure that, I didn't bother anybody else with my problems. So I would isolate a lot. I would, do things on my own, even though I was overextended. I would suffer in silence. Nobody ever knew, that I was going through something rough. I always kept it inside and never shared it out with anybody. I also thought that, being good enough meant that I was always busy, always achieving, always hustling, always working on the next thing. I never had time to sit and enjoy my achievements. I was never in my present moment or enjoying my milestones because I was always after the next big thing, because I needed to accumulate things. I needed to get the titles. I needed to get X amount of money because that would make me good enough. And that just wasn't true, right? God started to show me that those beliefs or those thinking patterns and those habits were actually not out of my strengths, but out of my survival mode. They came from a place where I didn't feel safe to rest, be, or just enjoy. When I started to heal and truly dive deep and realize that my worth is not on, my achievements, my career, the amount of money that I have, but just who I am as a person, all of those habits, all of those beliefs started to drain me, confuse me, and weren't helping me anymore. In survival mode they were, because I was trying to get more money to not be broke. I was trying to keep busy and I felt like I didn't deserve help, right? So in survival mode, that made sense. But once I started healing and becoming more aware and realized that my life is more than just that, they were no longer helping me, right? And maybe that's where you are. You've outgrown the version of yourself that had to shrink, that had to please everyone, or that had to carry everything on their own. And so now God's saying, you don't need that anymore. Let me teach you something new. Or you're saying, that's not who I am anymore. I need to grow and learn something new. So what does it really mean to unlearn things? It's a practice. It's not a mindset. It's a practice. It's allowing I always say that it's allowing God to renew my mind and allowing myself to be honest about what no longer aligns with who I want to be. It's becoming aware and taking small steps into action to replace the old with the new. For you, it's actually, figuring out what are those things that no longer align with you and what is it that you're going to do now to help you be who you're trying to be, right? So this is how you can start this week. And I have 5 different things that you can do. Number 1 is identify what's no longer serving you. Actually sit down, reflect, and think about what no longer is serving you, right? Ask yourself, what belief, habit, or story am I still living by that doesn't match who I am today? Write 3 of them down. Don't judge yourself with them. Just write them down. Get them out. I always say to write things in paper because if it's in your head, you're not going to be able to figure it out, just like a math problem. If it's a big math problem, if you're going to try to do it with mental math, it's going to be truly, really hard. So write them down. Don't judge yourself. But this way you become aware of what you're trying to change. You can become aware of, oh wow, really, I'm going to let this go. And it shows you that you're growing. So that gives you another boost of motivation to keep going with the process, right? Number 2 is replace it with the truth. Write, next to each one, write the truth that you are learning, or the truth that God is showing you, of who you are now and who you're trying to become. So an example for me would be, one of my old beliefs was I have to do everything on my own. For me, my truth is God sends help and I am allowed to receive it. Right? Because it was really hard for me to be like, I need your help. It was really hard for me to reach out and say, hey, I'm drowning, I need help. But God showed me that I'm allowed to receive help. Everybody needs help. You can't do everything on your own. And, replacing my old belief with the truth truly did open my eyes. And people that love you will help you. That's what I learned. The third thing is you're going to put it into practice. So practice a new pattern. So when your old story or habit or whatever else tries to come back in, pause and speak the truth out loud. Say, for me, I would say, no, I don't do that anymore. I receive help now. Repetition builds renewal, and your brain will adapt to your new truth, right? Because at first it's going to feel like that's not real. That's not who I am. But our brains love repetition and habit. And the more that you say it out loud, the more that it's going to stick, and your brain will adapt to it, and it will become your new truth. So practice it, right? Say it out loud. Write it out. Put it everywhere, right? Another thing that I did personally was anchor it into scripture. So I found a verse that spoke against my old mindset and declared it over myself daily. So when I felt unworthy, for example, I spoke Psalms 139:14 or Romans 8:37 over and over and over again in prayer. But if you are not, a follower of the Lord, you could also anchor your truth by having it everywhere. Write it out on sticky notes, repeat them to yourself every morning, in the car, any moment that you get, just anchor it into yourself over and over and over again. I also used to put it all over my desks. Wherever I was sitting for work, I had it on my background on my phone. So, you just want to anchor it in over and over and over again, because that way, again, like I said, once you start practicing the new pattern, the more you anchor it, the more that it does become your truth faster, and your brain adapts to it. And the fifth thing is to invite accountability. For me, I found, that sharing the thing that I was unlearning with a trusted friend really helped me. So I have a best friend that loves me as I am and loves me into my better self. So if you have a friend like that, a coach or a mentor, it's really important that you allow them to know that you're going through this journey, and they will help you, because transformation thrives in conversation, not isolation. And that's what I learned, because I know that, when you're trying to change, when you're trying to become better, you do have to isolate. You have to say no to people that might become a distraction. You have to say no to going out as much. You have to say no to a lot of things. And so you do have to isolate. I get that. But for things like this, where you're trying to replace old mindsets, old habits and things, you have to find accountability. And that's not going to thrive in isolation, because when we're behind closed doors, things can get a little difficult, right? So having the conversation of like, hey, you know what? I know that I have this habit about myself that I speak down on myself. So every time, we hang out, I'm going to ask you to help me catch those moments. And keeping yourself accountable with somebody you trust, when you want to walk backwards, that someone is telling you like, hey, don't do that. And you're not going to want to let them down. So invite accountability, because unlearning isn't a weakness. It's actually you maturing. It's choosing to walk in your truth even when it feels unfamiliar, right? So don't be afraid to invite somebody in for accountability. Now, As always, I give you guys a Bible verse. This week's Bible verse is in Romans 12:2, and it says, "Do not be conformed to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." Again, Romans 12:2, "Do not be conformed to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." Let go of all those old habits, Let go of all those limiting beliefs. Let go of those old friendships that no longer serve you. The relationship, maybe, and that's the hard part. It is hard to get up and say, like, I don't want this anymore. But you have to pause and ask yourself, what's something I've been holding on to that no longer serves where I'm going? Right? You have to be real and say, like, yeah, you know what? That person felt safe once. That friendship felt safe once. That thought pattern helped me survive. But now it's heavy and it's limiting myself. Yeah? So, it's okay to outgrow people, habits, or ways of thinking. Know that you're not a failure for doing that thing. You're not a bad person, because that is growth. And you make room for what God does want to teach you, or the person you are trying to become. I always say that you have to make room for new things, right? And I don't think that's something that we do as humans. You think about it, you go shopping and you add on to your closet. Well, now I'm learning that every time I go shopping, I'm going to replace as many items that I bought, take some old ones out, and put some new ones in, because you're making room. So, I hope that this message in this episode helps you in any way. If you can share this with somebody, or somebody came to mind that might need to hear this, please share it along. We grow because you're here, and I want to thank you for being here. Remember that I love you, but that the Lord loves you more. Always, always, always. And we'll see you guys on the next one.